Hey there, guess who it is? It's Onioncreature. That's right, it's me. And today is a very special day because I'm going to talk about the new Kirby game, Kirby Star Allies. And it's a very good game. So I thought that I would do a little review of this game since it's a Kirby game and I like to talk about Kirby games. So it seemed like a pretty natural fit. So yeah, this game has a lot of really good things about it. There are a lot of really good things. I want to go over those first because there are some detractors. But first of all, let's focus on the positive aspects. So what we got is we got the first mainline series HD Kirby game with traditional Kirby gameplay. We had Kirby and the Rainbow Curse previously, so that was a spin-off and it's sort of a different style. So this is the first sort of traditional Kirby game. And it's on the Nintendo Switch. It's 1080p, 30 frames per second. I know. I hear the screeches of the souls. So first of all, the game looks fantastic. Visuals are beautiful, really striking visual style. Stuff can look really beautiful, can look kind of dark and creepy sometimes when it needs to. But it looks very nice. All the characters are beautifully animated. They look very nice. Everything is adorable. Everything is light. It's cute. The UI is gorgeous. It sort of continues the sort of comic book style that we've been seeing from the Kirby Battle Royale. Sort of continuing this. They had the comic book style in sort of the opening of this. It's good stuff. The music as well is beautiful. Some of the series best. I don't think there's a single track here that I would consider bad. It's very catchy. These tunes will stick with you for years on end, and there's some great little remixes in there. Some fantastic new tracks. It has one of my favorite credits themes ever. I'll get to that later, but it's very special. It's very special. Now I'm gonna go over the gameplay. So this game is a little different from your traditional Kirby game because it's very focused on the 4-player multiplayer. So the helpers return from Kirby Superstar and Superstar Ultra, and there's a very welcome addition. This game, to me, seems like a lot of what what Kirby GCN might have been like if that had ever released. Because you have 3 helpers on screen at once helping you out, and that really changes the gameplay quite a bit. It does make the game easier. They're helpful dudes. The ability to have your friends and colleagues drop in and drop out at any time is really cool. The multiplayer is probably the most accessible Kirby multiplayer ever. Probably one of the most accessible multiplayer modes in any game ever. Kirby is all about being accessible to literally everyone, so that's not too surprising. There's a great variety of abilities in this. There's some really cool new ones, some great returning ones, and then you have characters like Chef Kawasaki who take the cooking ability, which previously, and if you play as Kirby, only has 1 attack, but they give it a full moveset and stuff like that, so you can play around as characters who you wouldn't be able to do before and do some really neat stuff. And then this game also has a really nice feature. I actually ended up liking it far more than at first I wasn't sure about it, but I ended up really liking it, and it adds actually a bit of depth to the game, actually, especially during some of the boss battles, and that's the ability mixing. Mostly it's used for when you have a elemental ability and you can combine it with more conventional ability like sword or cutter or the new stick ability, which is quite nice. It actually adds quite a few new attributes to that ability. It makes it really fun and cool, and certain bosses, like for example an ice boss, will be weak against a fire attack and stuff like that. It's really cool and very well implemented and more in depth than you might think. Yeah, so that's basically mostly what the abilities mixing is. There's some where you have specific attacks. So Fighter, Suplex, and Clean, for example, all have abilities where you gather up your allies and then just throw them across the screen everywhere. They go everywhere. It's a big thing. It's a big thing. So you have abilities like that, and then you have the elemental stuff, and then the elemental stuff sometimes can combine with each other. There's a lot of intricacies there. It's not every ability can combine with every other ability, but each ability has at least one thing that it can do. I think it's fun. I think it adds a little more to it. It's sort of a middle ground between Kirby Squeak Squad, where it was technically in the game but barely used, and Kirby 64, where it was the main gimmick of the game. So it's a little bit in between there. It's definitely far more in depth than Kirby Squeak Squad, but not quite as all-encompassing as Kirby 64, which I think it works really well, and it keeps the focus more on the multiplayer aspects. The game, it's interesting because the game has less worlds than all the 3 previous mainline Kirby games. However, the worlds have far more like extra levels and little things to do in them than in previous games. And also, because there are less worlds, you get actually multiple bosses per world. And sometimes they do some really cool things with the bosses, like a level will lead up to a boss fight, and sometimes there's like stuff that happens even after the boss fight. One in particular sees you sort of escaping this area after it's like crumbling, because after you defeated a boss, which I thought was really neat, and there's some stuff like that, and it's very nice. Okay, I've made it this far without talking about spoilers, but I just got to get into them because there's a lot of spoily things I want to talk about, and I just can't make it any further without talking about them. First of all, there's a couple levels that really stood out to me. One of which like recreates this level from Kirby Superstar, this iconic level from Milky Way Wishes, where the seasons change when you go through a door, and you use that for puzzle solving. And they totally recreated that, and I was like, oh, and when I first saw that, because I hadn't seen anything of it, I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. So they have stuff like that. The level design is definitely on par with the previous games. There is one aspect though in which I feel it is lacking, and that is this game, at maximum, each level will have a maximum of 2 collectibles. And I think that's a bit of an issue. It makes the levels feel a bit less shallow. They don't necessarily have as much going on as some of the Planet Robobot / Triple Deluxe / Return to Dreamland levels. And the thing is, so you have these little rooms that you go into to solve challenges, but unfortunately, the abilities that you need to solve the puzzles are pretty much always provided in that room, which I think sort of detracts from some of the puzzle elements, because in some previous Kirby games you'd have to like say, oh, I need this ability, I don't have it now, but I'll get that and then come back later, and you don't really have that in this game, which I think is unfortunate, because I think that's sort of a classic sort of Kirby puzzle element that felt like it was kind of missing from this. And then yeah, it just feels like there's less little hidden details. Generally, there's still quite a bit to do in the levels, but I thought that was kind of unfortunate. I don't know. I feel like with all the design choices, you have to keep in mind that they're designing it for multiplayer. That doesn't necessarily excuse it, but it sort of explains why they might have done certain things. Yeah, so I feel like if they had more puzzle pieces, because that's the collectible, the main collectible, is you unlock extra stages with buttons, which return from like Kirby's Adventure, which I thought was very cool, and a very nice way of doing it. However, I think I did prefer the method of unlocking extra levels in Planet Robobot and Triple Deluxe, where if you collected enough sunstones or code cubes, you unlocked an extra level. I think that worked a little better. It made it feel more rewarding and made it feel like it was a bit more of a challenge to unlock an extra stage. Whereas this time, you just solve a challenge and then you find a button, which does still work, but I prefer the previous method. However, there is sort of a nice caveat. Like, it's not, I don't know, because the game's main collectibles are these puzzle pieces. And so you have the small regular puzzle pieces, and then you have the big puzzle pieces. So each stage will only have a maximum of 1 big puzzle piece. But you can still go back and collect the smaller puzzle pieces, because you actually need quite a lot to complete the puzzles. So it does encourage you to, I guess, go back and replay levels to get those puzzle pieces, but it's not quite as nice as collecting code cubes / sunstones / energy spheres. I think that worked better and it was more rewarding, because in this game there's just so many different manners in which you can collect puzzle pieces, so there isn't as much of an incentive to replay levels. It's still there, but it's not quite as strong, which is a shame, because the levels are really fun, and I think that's one of the good things about some of the previous Kirby games, is that it sort of encouraged you to go back and replay them and sort of scour them, like look at all the little details to try and find stuff. I feel like that's missing a little bit from this game. And the difficulty in general has definitely been scaled down. It's definitely easier than most Kirby games, which I would assume is to make it accessible for multiplayer. But I feel like a better balance was struck in the previous games. In the previous mainline games, Return to Dreamland, etc. This game definitely skews a bit further on the easier side than I think is necessary. It's still a lot of fun to play. The gameplay is very engaging and enjoyable and, you know, action-packed. But it feels like it would have been a little nicer if they were able to get the difficulty working a little better. I will say though, probably one of the best aspects of this game is the finale is a total highlight. This is one of the best Kirby final bosses / final boss sections like ever. When I got to the end, I was totally impressed. I was like, man, this is super cool. This is the best. This is like super dang nice. I was very impressed by that. So the extra modes are definitely another part that's lacking. Because you have Super Slam Heroes, and then this is one where you chop wood to avoid the caterpillars. And so both of those are fun, but they're not nearly as in depth as some of the previous sub games we've gotten. And you're not probably gonna want to play them too much after you've done it like a couple times and you've beaten all the 3 difficulty settings on each. There's not a lot of replay value there, and that's kind of unfortunate, but they're still fun while they last, but not much there, especially in comparison to previous sub-games, even in like Return to Dreamland. They're sort of on the level of the Kirby Superstar sub-games. It's not as good as you might want. However, the second extra mode I think is really cool what they did. They sort of took the DDD Tour / Revenge of Meta Knight method, but sort of expanded it. You can select any helper you want and then play through levels. And then I have to touch on the Dream Friends. You can play as all the Return to Dreamland fellows, Meta Knight, King Dedede, Bandana Waddle-Dee. And they added 3 recently as DLC, which were super cool. They added Rick, Kine, and Koo as the Animal Friends, as all one ability in one. They added Marks, and they added Gooey. And I'm like, yeah, I want more of that stuff. That was very cool. And actually, those, if you play as the 3 DLC characters, they have sort of slightly altered level elements. But in Guest Star, the levels themselves are slightly altered. They're a little harder because I think you have less health, and you sort of collect these level up items, which sort of level up your speed, health, and attack. And yeah, it's fun. It's very good. And there's sort of an incentive to complete it with all characters. I don't know if I'm going to do that because it's going to take a long time. I might try. I feel like what they did there is very good, and it has like the best credits music in any Kirby game ever. They like remixed the Kirby Superstar credits theme and the Kirby's Return to Dreamland credits theme. It's like the best thing ever, and I was like, it's like the best. Yeah, good stuff. I don't know. I mean, that's like there's not a whole lot to talk about. Like that's like what it is. That's the game. It's a whole lot of fun. I definitely recommend it. It skews a bit too easy, but it's still that Kirby you know and love is very enjoyable and cute, and the music's great, the visuals are great. Multiplayer is a lot of fun to do. It's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot of fun, and you really ought to check it out. I know some people are saying they don't think it's worth $60. Obviously, value is subjective. I obviously think it's worth $60. So yeah, I think I'm excited to see what HAL Laboratory does next. I think this was a nice game. Hopefully the next Kirby game, they sort of get the difficulty working a little better. But even still, I'm very happy with the product I have received. And I think you will be too if you play it, or if you've already played it. I don't know, man. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I got to say about Kirby Star Allies. Yeah, I have another Kirby Star Allies video that should be going up pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that one. And until next time, this has been an Onioncreature review of Kirby Star Allies. Thank you for watching if you did so. Thank you for viewing this video. Alright, I'm done in this. Look, I gotta say bye now to all you.